Goodness comes and evil goes.
Kimunga Ukombozi, Kimunga Ukombozi, Kimunga Ukombozi, divine liberty, divine liberation, divine freedom, and all that will bring for African people wherever we happen to be on the face of this earth. Karibu, welcome. My name is Kwende. Today we're going to get into another important subject, and that subject is ASBWOK and Liberty. For those that are familiar with previous video messages on the subject, ASBWOK is an acronym for African spirituality by way of Kwanzaa. And it really is a spiritual formulation for African souls to engage in that keeps whole what might be considered to be spiritual and what might be considered to be cultural into a spiritual and cultural whole that is functional for the African self to grow. And there are a number of previous videos that deal with what it's about. So we're going to look at, in line with the recent series of video messages, ASBWOK and Liberty. And yes, ASBWOK is all year round and very much part of what it means to mission onward and victoriously so for the outcome of liberty with the key components of liberators and the process of liberation. Generally, in the contemporary world where African people have been subject to all kinds of interruption, disruption, and ills that have been imposed by others that mean the African ill, Africans are in a state of less than optimal functioning. And if Africans are in such a state, then there is a state that is naturally where Africans ought to be, and that is fully flourishing or optimally functioning. So there's a distance between the two. There is an undesirable state of being and a state that is natural and right. And it's the distance between the two that really the process of liberation brings to the fore, so that this undesirable state is transformed into a desirable state or a optimal level of functioning. So we want to move from here to here, our natural and rightful place to be. And in that, there are multiple levels of the self that are part of the fabric of engaging in ASBWOK. So we can identify those and we can highlight them as the key components for the process of liberation that then yields the outcome or result of liberty. So what we have then are functional liberator units of self. And the functional liberator units of self are the African person self. The harmonious and complementary union between the African male and the African female. We have the African family, the African community, the African nation, and the African world community, all of them functional units at the various levels of the self as living institutions. And these are key components, key elements necessary to achieve liberty. So they are functional liberator units of the self. And remember what I said earlier, that we're at a state where interruption and disruption has meant that we're not at our optimal level of functioning. What we have at best, in general terms, are survival units. And we want to get from survival units or no units at all into optimally functioning units of the living self. The process of lifting or ascension, of transformation to the fully flourishing self, is the process of liberation. So each of those levels of the self are engaged in, if we are to transform, if we are to become who and what we're supposed to be, are units engaged in the process of liberation, each with its own dynamic as a part of that overall process. And so the output then becomes the African person of liberty, the African male-female union of harmonious complementarity of liberty, the African family of liberty, the African community of liberty, the African nation of liberty, the African world community of liberty. That's the outcome. And the process of liberation continues because it's a process of both attainment and maintenance, safeguarding. So it is very important to know that it's not just about a step to get or even getting, it's about ensuring that it is secure for eternity to come. So ASBWOK then as a formulation is all year round, and in the season of liberty or the season of liberation, it is indeed part of life's functioning. To reap the rewards of the harvest that such inherent self-determined effort yields. Victorious effort and victorious yield. So with that food for thought, and surely it is food for thought, Kimunga Ukumbozi, Kimunga Ukumbozi, Kimunga Ukumbozi, divine liberty, divine liberation, divine freedom, and all that that will bring for African people wherever we happen to be on the face of this earth.